how the iPhone creates a luxurious experience using motion design. The iPhone is one of the greatest examples of excellent motion design used to create a fabulous user experience. The first thing you'll notice when you compare the motion on an iPhone compared to the majority of Androids is that the motion on the iPhone is so much slower. It's very smooth and it really takes its time to get from location to location. Where on the Android, the motion is a lot faster. It is whipping from place to place. And this was a really interesting choice by Apple because often as motion designers, we are brought in to make the product feel faster. Because a lot of times, the way you make someone think the phone is faster is by just speeding up the animations. When the user picks up the phone and flicks from screen to screen and it goes fast, the users are like, wow, this phone is really quick. When in a lot of cases, it's just that the animations are really fast. The hardware really isn't any better, but the animations are much faster. So this begs the question, why would Apple choose to have its motion be slower than a competitor? Especially when you put the phone side by side, the Android is going to seem so much faster. The reason I think Apple chose to do this is because they were really thinking about their brand as a whole and having the motion reflect the brand. And one of the key values of Apple is luxury. The iPhone feels luxurious. So that's why I believe they chose to go with slower, smoother animations. I believe that subconsciously we associate smooth movements with luxury. For example, on a Rolex, an incredibly high-end watch, the hands seamlessly go around in a circle. It's not like the cheap watch where the hands go tick, 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 tick. On a Rolex, all in a circle, never stopping. And think about luxury cars. What makes a car luxurious is the smoothness of the ride. Apple really pays attention to absolutely every single detail, and that's why I believe they gave the luxurious feel all the way down to the motion design. I think the reason that Apple's motion design is so successful is because it references the real world so much. Things within Apple's motion design move very similar to the way things move in the real world. For example, nowhere do you see something stopping abruptly. Everything moves slowly and kind of feels like it has physics being applied to it. You know, for example, like if you slid your phone across your desk, you'll notice that it speeds up and then slows down and comes to a stop. And you'll notice that the exact same thing is done when you move across the app. Things speed up and then slow down as they come to a stop, or they bounce, or nothing is abrupt. Everything feels like when you move it, it's being pushed and moved in a similar manner than it would in the real world. I really feel that the motion design and the UI design were really seamlessly integrated to make the user feel that they're interacting in a three-dimensional space, even though it's just a flat 2D screen. I think this was really smart because as users, we exist in a three-dimensional world and we're used to interacting in the world in that way. So the way we interacted with the world seamlessly moved into interacting with the phone. And I think there's a few really good examples of it. I find the transition from the app screen to the widget screen to be absolutely beautiful. I know that's very nerdy, but I'm a nerdy motion designer and I find things like this absolutely gorgeous. I love the way that as you slide to the right, the apps are pushing backwards in space. So they feel like they're getting further away from you. And as they're getting further away, they're going out of focus. Just like in the real world, as things get further away from you, they're getting out of focus. Exactly how our eyes operate in the real world. Things close to you, you're staring at it, that's in focus. Things behind it are out of focus. So it's really playing to the world that we live in. And I like, as you complete sliding the widget screen over, everything behind of it is blurred, but you can still see that the home screen and the outline of the picture that's behind there. So even though now you're on this higher screen, you're still aware of the world that exists beneath it. And that makes the user so aware that, oh, it's so easy for me to get back to where I was before. And I think that is just really well executed because it feels natural and organic, the same way that this would move if these were all actual objects in the real world and our eye was looking at something closer and then looking at something further away. I think that's really excellent. Here's a small detail that's a really excellent example of great motion design. When you're flipping through the widgets up here, it would have been really easy to just slide it. You know, that's all it needs to do. But what they did is when you slide it, not only is it sliding down, but it's also being pushed back in space. So it's really feeling like the user is actually pushing on it with their finger and it's moving back. And I think that's really great. And I also like if you really flick it, it bounces back, so it really feels like it's a real object that's like on an elastic and really ties you into like, oh, okay, this is a real thing, and when I move it different ways, it reacts differently, just like the real world. It's a small thing, but I think it's the tiny details like that which take your motion design to the next level, when it would have been totally functional to just have it slide, 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 doesn't need to go back down, but they chose to do that, and it's the little details that really just take you from 90 to a 100. I could nerd out about the minute details of Apple's motion design all day long, but I'm going to give you a few key takeaways, which I learned so that you can improve your own motion design. Number one, I think you should really, when you're animating something on screen, think about how would this object move in the real world? How can I tie back this movement to an experience my user has had in reality? I think that's a great way to really make it feel intuitive if it's referencing a movement in the real world. The other thing you need to think about is what is the goal of the motion? Is the goal to feel that your product's faster, or is your goal for your product to feel smoother? Because that's gonna change every single thing about the motion. It's gonna change your timing and the motion curves you're choosing to use. And another thing you need to think about is how is my motion referencing the brand framework which I'm animating in. For example, if I applied Apple's motion curves to the Nickelodeon app, it would feel dull and strange. Like, if it's a Nickelodeon app, it needs to be bouncy and fun and feel like a cartoon, where if I applied those same Nickelodeon bounces to Apple, it would feel absolutely insane and totally out of character. So you really have to think about how your motion exists within the broad context of the design, the brand, the music, and having it all come together to be a seamless user experience. Well, that's all I have to say for today. Go out there, design some awesome motion.